Hey, praise the Lord, guys. My name is Straw Greenhorn. And straightway, Jesus constrained his disciples to go by ship over onto the other side while he sent the multitude away. Now, when he sent them away, he went apart into a mountain to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. Now, by this time, the ship was in the midst of the sea, being tossed to and fro by the waves because the wind was contrary. Now, in the fourth watch of the night came Jesus walking on the water to go to his disciples. Now, when they saw him, they cried out in fear and were sore troubled, saying, "It is a spirit." But Jesus straightway said unto them, "Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." And Peter said, "Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee on the water." And he said, "Come." Now when Peter got down out the ship and entered on the water, he began to walk to Jesus. But then when he saw the wind boisterous, he began to be afraid and he began to sink. Then he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." Then Jesus put forth his hand and saved them and said, "O ye of little faith, wherefore did thou doubt?" Now they both walked back to the ship, and when they got in, the winds ceased and the storms were calmed. Now those that were in the ship came unto him, saying, "Of a surety thou art the Son of God." Alright, so now we see Jesus, about to walk on water, one of his greatest miracles that, people, this is the one that people usually like to talk about the most. We know he cast out devils and he healed the sick and he did all the miracles with the food, but it's the walking on the water that people really talk about. So he had just got done feeding the multitude with the fishes and the loaves. So he starts out by saying that straightway he constrained his disciples to go over onto the other side before him by ship while he sent the multitude away. So he wanted to be alone and he wanted to separate himself from them, because sometimes you get your greatest results when you come to God by yourself. Because as you see, he was about to go up into the mountain to pray, so he sent them over by ship while he sent the multitude away. So that he was very popular with them, and they loved being around him. They loved his stories, they loved his healing and casting out devils, and he just fed them with the fishes and the loaves. So they were pretty much attached to him at this point. So he had to send the disciples forward and send them away by themselves, because previously we saw them even following him by ship. While he was going by ship, they were following him walking. So this time he was sending them away for good. Say, all right, the show is over. So then it goes on to say, and when he sent the multitude away, he went up apart into a mountain to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. So, he went up to pray, like I said, by himself. God often says that, "Seek me in secret and I will reward you openly." Because the scribes and Pharisees, they love to pray standing on the street corners. But what did he say? They have their reward, because they pray to be seen of men, and they disfigure their faces when they fast to appear unto men to fast. So the greatest rewards come when you seek God. What did he say? Wash your face, anoint your head with oil, enter into your prayer closet, praying unto God in secret. So this was Jesus's prayer closet, the whole mountain, I guess. So he prayed unto him, and when the evening was come, he was there alone. So I'm guessing that when he fed the 5,000, because remember, the time was now past. So were they overnight after they ate the fishes and the loaves? Because the reason why they wanted to send them away, because he said that this is a desert place and the time is now past. Send them into the villages so that they may buy themselves victuals. So now here we seeing it said that, and when the evening was come, so I'm guessing it was the next day. So they actually maybe stayed overnight with him. When the evening was come, he was there alone, because it was already evening from the previous day from the fishes and the loaves. So then it goes on to say, by this time the ship was in the midst of the sea, being tossed to and fro by the winds, because the winds were contrary. So they were in a pretty heavy storm, and the winds were boisterous. It was raging. The worst of conditions that a sailor could ever ask for. So there's many theories as to why the winds were so boisterous. A lot of preachers will say that it was because Jesus was not in the ship that the winds were able to come onto them. Maybe the enemy was trying to take them out because Jesus wasn't in their presence, so he wasn't there to rebuke anything that he would try. He wasn't there. They couldn't see the enemy coming. There's a lot of theories as to why the wind suddenly became a storm, suddenly came out of nowhere. That's the first thing that they would like to say. Not saying that is right, not saying that is wrong. I'm just telling you how, a lot of people will explain it. They'll say that not having Jesus in your boat, you're inviting all kind of storms in your wind. And they'll explain it in different ways. There's many theories as to why. Could it just have been a coincidence? Maybe, you won't know unless you ask him yourself. And many times, even the man that was born blind, they asked, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And they said neither did sin, but just that the glory of God could be manifest. Maybe this was a glory of God being manifested moment, just so that he could, calm the winds. So he goes on to say, in the fourth watch of the night, then cometh Jesus walking on the water. So on ships, they have watches where they, everybody gets to sleep, I guess, and one person watches, for everything that's going on. Any incoming other ships, any storms, anything that might be of interest. So then here they are watching. So it's a storm, nobody's asleep, it's a storm, and they see him coming. I know they get terribly afraid, and they cry out saying it's a spirit. But Jesus straightway, he said unto them, it is I, be of good courage, be not afraid. That being a spirit, and all of them seeing it, it must have been such a scary sight. And Jesus wasn't even there with them, so I guess they were feeling very vulnerable. So I guess they were they were really afraid, because imagine seeing something like that happen. He carefully and quickly called out to them, saying, be not afraid, it is I, letting them know that everything's going to be all right. So at this point, the storm waves were still roaring and it was still boisterous. But Peter was the only one that said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee. And then he said, come. So I once heard someone say that, they would never have watched Peter go out by himself without going also. They would have wanted to walk on the water just like him. But that real courage is usually done by one person. And then when they conquer and achieve it, then everybody else follows. If you look at all the great things that were done, Jesus, when he went to the cross, he went alone. Everybody denied him, everybody left him. That's because real courage is usually done alone. People that have achieved great things in history, the civil rights movement, it was done by a very few courageous. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, she was on that bus by herself. Real courage, first time something is being done, it's usually done by one person, because everybody else is deathly afraid. If you see a lot of people doing something because somebody else achieved it, and other people seeing them achieve it, it gave them the courage to also go after it themselves. I myself, I'm an athlete, a sprinter. When you see, in the olden days, nobody believed that it was possible to run under 10 seconds. When we started out, it was 12. People were running 12 seconds, and then, one lucky guy, he went and he got 11. And then, another came, he got, a low 11.1. But the 10 seconds, 10.9, 10.5. And then, somebody finally came along and proved that it was possible. I know we have guys running, super fast times. If you look at any, I'm drawing a blank, and usually that doesn't happen to me. But if you look at any meaningful achievements in history, you see that it was one person. It was one person that did it. And when they conquered it, then everybody else saw that it was possible. And that's when it opened up and everybody else started to do it. And, being the Bible, this is about, faith. Jesus walking, the path of, sacrifice and uprightness, holiness and communion with God and suffering the attacks of the devil. Nobody else wanted to do that. And that's why Peter was at the fire and they were saying, thou art one of him, thou art one of him. It was because he didn't want to suffer. Spiritually, they could tell that something was coming. Even though Jesus had warned them before, he told them that, hey, Son of Man must be rejected and suffer many things and be crucified. That didn't register in their heads. But spiritually, they could sense that something was coming, and it was terrible and great. And until he did it and showed them that it was possible, nobody else wanted to do it. Because, like I said, anything that's of true courage, real courage, if you see a lot of people doing it, then it's not courage. The first person to skydive out of an airplane with a parachute, nobody wanted to do that until somebody did it, and then they saw that it was possible, and everybody else started doing it. Because eventually, it wasn't Peter that got crucified upside down. One of them I think it was him. You're telling me that you guys were afraid to be crucified. I know you want to be crucified upside down. See, when that person does that first courage, they're all alone. Check any achievement, any moment. I want to say the great conquerors of old. They didn't know that countries could be conquered until they saw one person do it. So he said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me to come unto thee. So no, the rest of them, they were watching to see if it was possible. So we see Jesus walking on the water, and he says that it's him. But at this point, could we see that it was him? Could we see his face? What if it was a trick or something? So the rest of them, they were watching. You see, if Peter had walked all the way to Jesus and everything was fine, then you would have seen the rest of them come out one by one. Because it was Peter that was doing the real courage amongst them. But it says that when he saw the winds boisterous, he began to be afraid and he began to sing and he said, Lord, save me. So, he took his eyes off the possibility. You see, the faith that led him out there in the first place, he took his eyes off that and he began focusing on something else. So you see, it's possible to start out right and then get distracted or lose the reasons why that you're doing something. And that's exactly what he did. A lot of preachers will say that he took his eyes off Jesus, but it was still Jesus there, and he was, he started to look more to the fear aspect. Not so sure if this is possible to be done, because you gotta remember that, like I said, he was the one that was doing courage here. And now imagine you looking as one of the other disciples, if he's gonna be successful, and then you see him start drowning. Then what are you gonna say? You're gonna say, no, ain't no way I'm going out there. I saw what happened to him. But then if he had done it right, this story would have ended differently, because you'd have seen all of them would have been out there. There would have been nobody left to steer the ship. All of them would have been out there. Real courage is right. So then this is showing me something else, because when somebody believes something and they're the only one that's courageous enough to do it, and you see if they fail, and it's going to take a while for somebody else to arise with the courage, because everybody's going to see that they failed and maybe there was really negative consequences. So nobody's going to want to, unless it's going to take a real innovator that's going to come and retry what that person failed at, because they're going to say, look, you see, this is how it ended. It failed. And not only did it fail, he died, or he lost this and this happened to him and that and that. So he took his eyes off the faith. He saw himself walking on the water and he saw it working out. But then when he got there, it hit him that, what if it doesn't work? When he saw the waves, look, it's so scary, and that overpowered the faith that he had before. I see it different. A lot of people will say that he took his eyes off Jesus and that's why it happened. But I say that he took his eyes off what got him out there in the first place. He believed that it was possible. He believed that it was possible. He believed that he could walk underwater, and he believed that everything would have been fine. But then, when he saw the danger aspect, then he started to question what he believed. He started to see instead of looking at the glass half full, he started to see it half empty. What if this happens? What if that happens? And then he succumbed to his fear, and then he cried out saying, Lord, save me. And then Jesus, he pulled forth his hand and he pulled him up, and then Jesus said, oh, ye of little faith, wherefore did thou doubt? And then the Bible says they both walked back to the boat, and when they got there, the storm calmed. Usually you see in this interpretation, this one is in Matthew, it doesn't say where, and he would have walked past them, because one of them in the other gospels, it said that he almost walked past them. He didn't say it in this one. I don't remember if it said that he rebuked the storm and that's why it stopped, or he commanded the storm to stop. But in this one, it just said that when they got back there, the storm stopped. Kind of shows, if that's the case and he did not say it, then it was just a test. Maybe if he rebuked the storm, then it was a real storm. So now those that were in the boat came unto him and worshiping him, saying, surely thou art the Son of God. Walking on the water, calming the seas. What kind of man is this? What manner of man is this that even the winds and the seas obey him? Now, when I see this, I look at it from two perspectives, or I have two questions. Was this just an additional confirmation that yea, thou really art the Son of God? Like from seeing all the miracles, the healing, the casting out devils, feedings, the fishes and the loaves, and every great thing that he did. Was this just another thing in the pile of things that's saying, yes, we believe, and this is just one more thing to make us believe? Or was it, they were on the fence and, they finally gave in and said, truly thou art the Son of God? That's the question I want to ask. I don't know. My name is Straw Greenhorn.